The Art of Leadership Network.
Hey leaders, welcome to the Lead Culture Podcast, part of the Art of Leadership Network. I'm your host, Jenni Catron, CEO of the Foresight Group. We're a company dedicated to helping leaders develop thriving teams. Each week, I'll be your guide as we explore practical strategies to equip you with the tools you need to lead with clarity, confidence, and build unstoppable momentum in your organization. My mission is to be your trusted coach, empowering you to master the art of self-leadership so you'll learn to lead yourself well so you can lead others better. Each week, we take a deep dive on a leadership or a culture topic. You'll hear stories from amazing guests and leaders like you who are committed to leading well. So let's dive in and keep learning on this leadership journey together. Today, I am joined by Kelly Roach. Kelly is one of the only female founders in the online space to build her company from 0 to 8 figures with zero debt, investors, or outside funding. Not a small feat. Kelly is also a former NFL cheerleader and a Fortune 500 executive turned 8-figure entrepreneur who empowers thousands around the globe to achieve financial and lifestyle freedom through entrepreneurship. Kelly is a multi-international best-selling author, top 20 podcast host, and a philanthropist. And today, Kelly shares just some really valuable insights into how her faith and business collide. I love this conversation so much because her perspective as a very accomplished leader and entrepreneur, but recognizing what she calls her Kairos moment, that moment where her goals, her faith, and her business ambitions aligned. We talk about the power of reinvention and how she's had to make pivots throughout her journey, as every leader really has to and needs to do. And then I love what she leaves us with. She challenges us to trust your calling and be patient, and that we can't dream a bigger dream than God has for us. So friends, here's my interview or my conversation with Kelly Roach. So much for joining me today. I was looking forward to this conversation. I told you before we started recording that somehow I bumped into your podcast and started to connect with your work a handful of months ago. And I was like, okay, so much to learn from who you are and what you do. So would you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell them a little bit about you?
Sure. Well, I'm happy to be here. My name is Kelly Roach, and I'm the founder of a portfolio of companies in the online space. All do a little bit of something different, but our mission and focus is empowering people to build wildly successful businesses, companies, organizations while putting their faith and their family first. So I've had a really fun adventure in the online space. And, my first company took it to 8 figures, Inc. 5000 list, won lots of awards, the whole thing. And then really started building my other companies around that because I wanted to be really cognizant of maintaining the integrity of the service delivery and just the uniqueness of that business, which is really about very high touch, very highly customized coaching and consulting for scale. And I'm a wife and a mom. And this year is my first year homeschooling my daughter, which is why I'm super casual today, because today is homeschool day, actually. But yeah, no, excited to be here. And I just love helping entrepreneurs make their dreams come true.
That's so great. That's so great. Give us a little bit more of your backstory and kind of what motivated you to pursue your goals and dreams. Like, what was the driver at young Kelly? What was your motivation?
Well, young Kelly, I grew up in a house where my parents were trying to figure out how they were going to pay the bills every month. And there's just a lot of stress and anxiety and fear and depression and, all the things that come with when you're living in a state of scarcity. Mm-hmm. And so I just decided at a really young age, I'm going to take a different path. That's not going to be my life. That's not going to be my path. And so, just really set out on a path very early in life to take lots of jobs, work as hard as I possibly could, learn skills. I got myself into a Fortune 500 company, and, I was the first one in, last one out for like 10 years, got promoted 7 times in 8 years, became the youngest senior vice president of the company. We basically broke every record for growth in the business. I had CEOs flying in from the different countries to study what we were doing, and, kind of climbed to the top of that mountain and, looked around and said, I really want to do something that I feel is contributing to society in a more meaningful way. I want to make a bigger difference. I want to do something that I really feel is, of service. And so back in 2012, started my first company, really focusing on taking everything that I had learned from billion-dollar corporation and, teach it to small business owners so that they can have more success and growth and, make their dreams come true.
Sure.
So,
yeah. Gosh, I mean, that's a lot of growth in a short amount of time. I know when you're young, 10 years feels like an eternity, but it goes so fast when you're on a rocket ride of growth like that.
Yeah.
You hit all of those major milestones. What made you passionate about the entrepreneur? What, because so many of us are inclined to just keep climbing the ladder, right? Of just well, what's the next big and the next big? Like, what was the grounding moment for you to go, hey, I need to reshape this?
It was a couple of things. I think the biggest thing for me was just like wanting to have a greater sense of contribution. I didn't really desire to be an entrepreneur, so to speak. I was never like, I really want to be my own boss and go be an entrepreneur. I know that's some people's dream. I never really felt that way. I actually had like an amazing boss. He was my mentor for 15 years. And I was so super blessed and lucky to have that relationship because it really taught me everything about business. But for me, it was really the sense of contribution. And it was also the time where I was, dating my husband and really starting to talk about what life do we want? What does life look like for us? And, moving up through a corporation at that time of life would have meant just being constantly on the road and traveling. And I was already running 17 locations. So I had had a taste of that life. And I was like, this is not what I want. And so it was just a combination of things, and I think also part of it was there's a reason for every season. And I feel like I really maxed that season of my life. I got everything there was to get. And I also gave everything there was to give. I gave all of myself to that. And, I still have people that are there today that I mentored that now, took on responsibilities that I had with the company. So,
cool.
it was a great season for me. And it just kind of led me to where I was ultimately meant to be, which is helping entrepreneurs,
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah.
I think one of the learnings for me, I had a little, not exactly the same dynamic, but I was in a corporate environment out of college for the first 9 years of my career. And it was rocket ride of growth, all the promotions, all the opportunities. And, there was a season where it was just is this is this all of it? Is there, what else do I need to be considering when I think about the impact I want to have? You talk about your Kairos moment, that moment where your goals, your faith, your business ambitions really aligned. Tell us more about that, how you leaned into that and just kind of that journey, especially your journey of faith kind of colliding with your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one great blessing in my life is that I was born into a very spiritual and, religious family, and faith was given to me as a gift really from birth. So I have been super blessed to have that as an anchor in my life, my entire life. And, my journey has zigged and zagged as I've kind of grown into adulthood and found my own, faith journey and path and all of those things. But I, first of all, in corporate, that was never a part of my life, although I would go to church before I would go into work in the morning many times. But I would never talk about faith or church or any of those things in the corporate world. And my first 10 years in my own business, I didn't either. It was one of those things where it was you keep it separate. It's professional, this is work, that's personal, all of those things. But, there were a combination of a lot of things that kind of happened all at once that led me to, first of all, fully dedicating my work and my business to God and to my faith life and what I believe is living out my gifts. But also on the flip side of that, I, really saw after COVID just how much entrepreneurs were struggling with mental health, with hopelessness, with despair, with depression, with just feeling out of alignment with their businesses and all of that. And I really realized that by bringing faith into business mentorship, that I could help a lot of people kind of rediscover themselves and really understand what the missing ingredient was. Because, we're taught so much in the secular world, that it first of all, it's self-reliance. And second of all, it's like we're always searching for something outside of ourselves. And, there's really no big voices in the business mentorship world that are like, hey, actually you're kind of searching to fill that void in a place that you're never going to be able to. So, I went through some major things. I had a major global media company sue me for using the word entrepreneur. So everybody can probably guess who that might have been. And so that cost me millions of dollars in lost time and having to recreate my brand and having to change thousands of links and websites and podcasts. I mean, I can't even tell you the extent of how deep the damage was. And it took me multiple years to get through that, recover from that, all of those things. But, going through that, I had a lot of people that I had thought were my allies, my friends, my best employees, my partners, my teammates, all kind of dissipate. And, what really came up for me during that time was like, I basically had to like rebuild myself from nothing. And I realized that because I had my faith and I had my family, I was like, you know what? Like all that stuff, like, and it really put into perspective for me for the first time, my whole life, every time I came across a challenge in my life, I could just outwork it. Right. So I'm the person that like, whatever comes my way, I'm like, give me a challenge. Like the name Kelly, it means warrior woman. Right. I'm like, let's freaking go. But when all of that was happening, there was nothing I could do to control it or influence it or change it. There was no outworking it. I just had to live through it. And it really made me realize how my faith carried me during that time, because it was probably the first time in my life that I really, really had to just like go all in on my faith, because there was nothing I could outwork. And I
couldn't do it in your own power.
Yeah. And I think the significance of that for me was realizing like, holy crap, like I have this secret weapon that I've been so lucky and so blessed to have. But I've been mentoring people in business, but I haven't been telling them that like all that strategy just sits on top of my faith life. And, what you really need as a foundation is a relationship with God. And, I just decided that it just felt, after going through that, it felt super out of integrity for me to teach business and not, credit everything that I was doing to my faith and really be vocal about that. So it was, it was like both things kind of collided at the same time, where on one hand, I was like, wow, these business owners like aren't going to make it if they don't figure out this whole God thing and like, and try to approach. And then at the same time, it was me realizing just the power and significance of my own faith and what that did for me going through the hardest time of my life, and how that got me through that. And I was just like, wow, like I have this amazing gift. Like I can't be teaching business and not talking about this. So that was really a huge Kairos moment for me. And, that's, obviously then I changed my program from the Inevitable Millionaire, because it's all about achieving like 1% success, elite performance, business growth, scale, relationships, all of those things, life mastery, and changed it to Kairos. And, now I still teach all of those things, but we put God in the middle. We put God in the front and center, on the left, on the right, So, yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for kind of giving that story and that background. And I think different circumstances, but I think so many leaders can relate to those moments of, I can't control my way out of this. So many leaders, entrepreneurs are high performers. We will muscle our way through. I mean, like I will joke, I'll outlast you. I might not be first, but I will outlast you. Right. And then you get to the place where you can't anymore in your own power. And that's so crippling in some ways, but so important because, again, person of faith, I grew up, and faith has always been really core to who I am and how I operate. But I'm so self-reliant so much of the time.
Yeah.
And getting to those places where you realize, gosh, what a gift that I have a relationship with God, and that can be and should be the foundation of what I do. But so many of us have to learn that the hard way. Is that fair to say?
Yes, for sure. For sure.
I meant to ask you this earlier. Did your decision to put faith so core to your work, did that come at a cost? Did people like go, hey, wait a minute, what are you doing? Or did people embrace that? Maybe they kind of recognize that as like underlying in your work. But I'm just curious if you got some pushback on that.
Yeah, I think that's part of like how God works, right? Because I think I had a huge fear of what the cost would be. And there was no cost at all. There was only gain. And so, I think that's just God being God, right?
Yeah.
And
like, so, just try me.
Yeah. and I had a lot of people say, hey, like, you didn't have to say it. We all knew it. We know you, the person. And if you know the person, you probably have a pretty good idea, what their moral foundation and ethical principles are and kind of the way they operate. So I just had a lot of people that really like rallied and nice. I think that it was really a great decision, but not so much because people were like, yay, faith, but more so because I think that people are just hungry for something richer and deeper and more meaningful. And they don't have many places to turn where there is someone that is teaching business at the level that I do, having done what I've done, and really integrating faith in a super powerful way into the strategy, the leadership, the decisions, all of those things. So I think it just came at a time where people are starting to realize, they've looked all the other places, and now it's time to look inside, and it's time to really rediscover the role that faith can play in their lives.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. How has faith guided your decision making? And what does that look like? And maybe it's always guided you, but like, is it more prominent? What does that look like day to day for you? I think I'll give you just a little context for me. I'm always straddling this line between faith and foolishness. Like there's good principles of like how to be a business owner and what to be mindful of and watching that P&L and, making decisions. And then there's this element, I often feel like God is saying, Jen, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Because there are moments where you're about to make a decision as a leader that might look a little foolish, but there's that element of like God's direction that you're trying to listen to. So I'm just curious how you would react to that, or how you would say, how does faith guide decision making for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly it, right? Because like God is always with us, but it's whether or not we're even open to asking or listening. I think most of us, especially elite performers, high performers, high impact, high agency people, we have a high sense of self-reliance because we don't want to be lazy, right? And so there's good that comes with that and bad, right? And so like a big part of what got us from here to there is being action oriented, future focused, driven, all of those things. But I think that true faith is, a willingness to slow down and ask God what the will is for your life and for your business. And, I think for me, like my first huge part of, adulthood was like set goals, execute, achieve, and ask God to bless everything I'm doing and guide me, right? It's like, this is what I want to do. You with me, God? Okay, cool, let's go.
Yep.
And my life now is very different where I'm like, I've accomplished a lot in the secular world. And now I'm kind of at the place where I'm like, what's up, God? Where do you want me? Where do you want me? Put me where you want me. Put me in the room where you want me to be in. Put me in front of the people you want me to be with. Like, let me bring you into the room where you're supposed to be that you're not right now. I am much more in a place now of like, I'm reporting for duty and I'm going to show up at the post that you need me at. Then I'm going to go do what I want to do and ask that you be with me. And I think that that's a really peaceful and powerful place. And I don't work any less hard. I'm not any less driven. I'm not any less motivated. I give it my all every single day. I show up 110%, but my mentality is just different. I don't feel a need to go out and aggressively like pursue accomplishing all of these things. Although I know I will continue to do that because I do the work, but I don't feel that I need to do that anymore. I think that where God ultimately wants me to be, he will carry me there regardless. I just need to keep doing the next right thing, you know?
Yeah. Gosh, I appreciate that so much. And the posture, right? It's the posture of, I love that. Just, I'm reporting for duty. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you got? What do you got for me? You know, where do you want me? What do I need? Where do I need to go? Or what do I need to do?
Yeah.
Instead of that anxious, driven, like sense of what I should be doing this, or I should be going there, or I want, and just being more comfortable and confident in his plan is greater than ours. Right.
Yeah.
And so I love that. Yeah. You're not working any less. You're not giving any less, but it's more of what's driving it. What's that foundation from which you're operating from?
Yeah.
That's really helpful perspective, Kelly. I love that.
Yeah.
I want to talk for a minute about my passion points are leadership and organizational culture, healthy teams, healthy leaders.
Yeah.
And I've heard others talk about your strengths as a leader and how you lead your team, like your intentionality in that. So has leadership come naturally to you? Is that like something that you just naturally had leadership gifts? What are you learning about building teams? Like, I'd love for you to just kind of speak to those topics a little bit.
Well, I have been on a 21-year plus journey of being a leader. I did not want to be a leader. I was a top performing salesperson. And when my leadership came to me and said, hey, we'd love to move you into leadership and have you go do this branch turnaround, that was my first, promotion. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not really interested in that. Like, I'm making great money. I'm having success. Why would I go do that? You're slowing me down. You're killing my game. And so when I first started as a young leader, I was impatient. I was probably a little too aggressive, all the things. And it's been, a multi-decade journey for me. But no, I mean, I'm obsessed with leadership. I love running teams. I love working with people. I love collaboration. I think the most fun part about running my companies is the work that I get to do with other amazing people that are also mission oriented and vision driven. And, I wrote a book about it, obviously bigger than you. I just released the audio book 2 months ago, and I totally updated the book and I added 7 more chapters because it's just insane in the online space. There's really no solid leadership education. And there's such a confusion between what leadership is versus management. Yeah. And people don't understand that when you're managing people, it's always going to be transactional and they'll never be loyal and they'll never like run through fire and run through walls for you because it was a transaction, right? Whereas when you become someone's mentor and you truly focus on becoming a leader, it's relational. It's not transactional anymore. And you can just do unbelievable things together. So yeah, I'm super passionate about that. And it's a lifelong journey. We're all working all the time to be better leaders because leadership is just an hour demonstration of our own personal growth and our own ability to manage our emotions and our communication and to create stability and strength for others, to be able to identify the different levels of support and styles of support that people need in order to be their best and to perform at peak. And it's just a never ending journey, but it's really interesting because, everybody, wants to grow the business and build the company and, have the success and have the freedom. But a lot of people really don't recognize that the thing that is standing in their way is their own lack of leadership. And That's so good. I would say if there's one thing for people that want to build really wildly successful companies, like where you are not the business, you are running a company that gives you freedom and autonomy and all of those things, it's really all about developing your leadership skills.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so good. One of the little mantras at Foresight, my company, is lead yourself well to lead others better. In that, it really does. I think John Maxwell is famous for saying everything rises and falls on leadership. And my listeners will know the story, but my early 20s, again, lots of similarities and probably my drivenness and style to yours. But it was that high achiever, a bit of a bulldozer, and didn't really recognize the value of and the gift of leadership, right? That, just the privilege it is to actually invest in the lives of others and see the giftedness of others flourish. And that's the fun for me in this season, is coaching leaders around how to develop healthy teams, right? Like to really align the gifts and strengths of a team to build cultures that provide a healthy foundation for achieving the mission of the organization. And so I love so much of what you shared there. So powerful. And it's kind of the core at the end of the day. Everything rises and falls on leadership.
For sure.
You have made some successful transitions, like those pivots in your journey, in your career. What advice do you give to leaders who feel called maybe to a different path, but are afraid to take the leap? Like, you kind of look at your story and your journey and you see you making these transitions at key moments. Yeah. And from the outside looking in, you make it look easy. But how did you take those leaps? How do you encourage other leaders? Like when you're sensing it's time for a change, how do you navigate that?
Yeah, well, what I would say first and foremost is that reinvention, there's an art and a science to reinvention. And if you're going to have a long and prosperous career, you're going to reinvent yourself over and over again, right? So it's just like leadership, it's a set of skills. And, I think either people don't do it or they do it really abruptly overnight and they don't do it well. And I actually wrote something called the Reinvention Playbook. I'll share the link so that you can give it below the episode for free to everyone that's listening. And it's literally a step-by-step guide on how to identify, based on how you're feeling and the results that you're getting and what you're seeing, what kind of reinvention is next for you and what changes you need to make to step into that reinvention, because it really is different. Like some people it's external, some people it's internal. Someone listening today might be a lateral move within a company. It might be leaving a company. It might be starting a company. It might be closing a company. It might be the products that you're selling. It might be the type of client that you're servicing. Like reinvention comes in unlimited sizes and shapes, right? So first it's like, where are you going? Why? And what is the type of reinvention that is needed? And then it's mapping out a strategy for how you evolve into that. And I say evolve because it's an evolution, not a revolution. And like I said, it's either a lot of people are on the pendulum one side where they just like sit and they're miserable for years because they don't know how to get started and they can't understand how to make the leap or how to bridge.
Sure.
And then other people just randomly decide overnight, I want to do this. And they just throw out all the success and everything that they've built and everything that they've created because they feel a certain way. Like I see this in the online space all the time where people are like they just burn it down. And it's like, it's so reckless to do that because you could have taken that gold and pivoted that into where you're going next very successfully, but it's just having a path and laying out the steps to do it. So in the playbook, I lay out basically, a 10-step process for people to map a reinvention. But here's what I would say to anyone listening today. When I started my business, I was a corporate executive. I was working 60 hours a week and running a very high level division. And I didn't walk in and just resign from my job. I started my business on the side. And for over 5 years, I built my company on the side to reinvent myself and to get to where I was going next. And all of the reinventions that I've done have been a multi-year process. And it can be shorter, it can be longer. It's completely unique to the person. But there's nothing to be scared of. It's just about having a plan and just putting one foot in front of the other. So just like you have a choice, you can quit a job and then go start a new one, or you can, stay in a job and you can build a side business or whatever the case. You can do the same thing with reinvention. It can be an evolution, not a revolution. And that really lowers your risk and gives you a stronger and more stable foundation to work off of as you move into whatever your new era looks like.
Yeah. Gosh, that's so good. And sometimes in my own journey, I started writing and speaking while I was working full time in a complete, in a different space, and had no idea that it would end up becoming my primary work today. But it was just taking those steps and keep learning and crafting those skills. And so I look back on that and go, a bit of a reinvention in my story, but I didn't know it at the beginning.
Yeah.
It was like, I was just kind of chasing something that was interesting, that I was enjoying, and kind of building it as I went. And then fast forward a decade and you're like, oh, this is who I am now in this stage, in this season. So I love that. I'm a plan girl. Like you give me a goal and I'm going to build a plan. And so that feels natural to me, but I think you're so right in that a lot of leaders, we might just see the thing that we want to, become. And we assume we just have to take this monster leap instead of going, hey, what are the steps that could get me there? Yeah. So I love that you're going to share that playbook. We'll have that linked in the show notes because that's super valuable. So good. Yeah. Okay, Kelly, you have lots of listeners or leaders listening who are eager to keep growing and learning and leading well. How would you coach us? What would you leave us with today?
Well, I mean, I would say that I think God plants our dreams in our hearts for a reason. And so I think trusting your own instincts and intuition, if you're feeling called towards something, it's probably for a reason. And I think that a lot of what takes us off course is when we put arbitrary timelines on things. And whether that's we think we're too late, we think we're too early, we think we're not ready, we need to get there faster, we need to get there slow, right? So I would say, trust your calling and be patient and pray for perseverance and pray for faith and pray to stay grounded in God's will for your life and know that you can't possibly dream a bigger dream for yourself than the one that God has for you. So you don't need to ask yourself if you're dreaming too big. You have to ask yourself, are you dreaming too small? And then just figure out what's the next best step? What's the next right thing? And just keep layering good decisions.
That's so good. So good. I had to write that one down. You can't possibly dream a bigger dream than God has for you.
Yeah.
So great. Kelly, where can people connect with you? Tell us about your podcast, your resources, where to find you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we'll link the Reinvention playbook down below. It sounds like that will be relevant for a lot of the listeners. So definitely make sure you grab a copy of that. The Kelly Roach Show. So I release 2 episodes a week and I teach on business and scaling and mindset and faith and family and marketing and all the things to create a 1% life. So the Kelly Roach Show is definitely the best place to connect with me. And then of course on social, pop in, say hello, say you heard me on the show. I'd love to connect with any of the listeners.
So good. Kelly, thank you for just letting your faith inform your work and for challenging so many leaders in the way you do. Really grateful you joined us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, leaders, I think you probably took away some great insights from that conversation with Kelly. I love her commitment to pursuing her calling, to finding the right rhythms in life that allow life and work and faith to coexist in a healthy way. And so I think you probably thought of someone else who would find this valuable. So I want you to share it with them. Send them a link, say, hey, I thought of you when I heard this conversation and thought you would really enjoy it. Share it with them. Give us a review. Let us know what stood out to you, what impacted you. And then I want to encourage you to keep leading well. Keep leaning into your growth as a leader and the investment in your team. And then if we can help you in any other way, make sure you reach out to me at Jenni Catron at getforesight.com, GET4SIGHT.com. And don't forget, if you haven't gotten your copy of Culture Matters yet, you want to make sure you go get a copy of that book right now. You can go to culturemattersbook.com. If you order it from there, I'm going to send you a signed version, a signed copy of it. And so I'm on the road doing a ton of speaking right now, and I'm hearing from leaders as they're digging in and they're saying, this is the playbook I needed. You've given me the how-to manual for culture. And so if you have question marks about how to build a healthy and thriving and unstoppable team, go pick up Culture Matters. And I promise you, it's going to give you some insights that help you continue to lead well. All right, friends, that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Have an amazing day and keep leading well.